I consider myself to be incredibly lucky to have been born and to have lived my life in Wales, because within this small area there are so many places and landscapes of such great contrast and variety. From the spectacle of our mountains and hills, the great sweep of our coastlines, our rivers, our lakes, our towns, our cities, our villages. Wherever you go, there is something for everyone in this, 8,000 plus square miles of ancient land of ours. Throughout my life, I've travelled to the four corners of Wales, and wherever you go in Wales, history is everywhere. One of my favourite quotes was written by O.M. Edwards, the educationist and historian who was born in 1858 and died in 1920. He said, "Our land is a living thing, not a grave of forgetfulness under our feet. Every hill has its history, every locality its romance, every part of the landscape wears its particular glory." He so neatly encapsulated the simple fact that it doesn't matter where you go in Wales, history is literally on our doorsteps. It can be anything from a massive castle to a ruined abbey. It can be a piece of historic landscape. It can be abandoned railway track. These are all pixels in this wonderful picture that combine to make up the heritage of Wales. This is the first in a series of short presentations about the way that Wales has been perceived by visitors and by locals over the past 500 years or so. And where better to begin than with Rhywyddfa, or Eryri, or if you like, Snowdon. Has to be one of the most iconic places in Wales. In this short film, we have to be very selective on which aspects to cover, as the study of the mountain and its surroundings, could indeed take a lifetime. Well, this is a mountain that's attracted visitors for centuries, but I must say I was absolutely staggered to see the number of people queuing and arguing to get onto the summit just over the last couple of months during lockdown. Quite beggars belief. I just wonder how many of the countless number of people who've actually stood on the summit realise just how significant the top of this mountain is in terms of fact and fiction in Wales. Here, for example, according to legend, is the burial place of Rita Gawr, the most powerful of all the giants in Britain. He who defeated the other 28 giant kings and plucked their beards to make himself a floor-dragging cloak. He ruled the land until he in turn was killed by, who else? The legendary King Arthur. So many people have visited Snowdon over the years that it's very difficult to decide which one of the thousands of visitors and thousands of quotes we're going to use. So I'm going to get really factual and have chosen Edward Lhuyd, that 17th century polymath who was born in 1660 and died in 1709. Now, here was a truly amazing scholar. On a visit to Snowdonia in 1688, he discovered over 40 new plants, including the now famous Snowdon lily, Lloydia cerontina, so named in his honour. This is one of the rarest plants in Britain and is only found in the most inaccessible places. One of Lhuyd's relations and very close friend was John Lhuyd, who visited in 1686. He actually described the road from Llanrwst to Llanberis as the Devil's Bowling Green. But then he went on to say that Snowdon itself was one of the places closest to heaven that he'd ever seen. A bit different from the comment of an English lawyer. He thought that Snowdon was the fag end of creation and the very rubbish of Noah's flood. It was the great 19th century debate between those who thought Snowdon was created as the result of the Great Flood and others who thought rather differently. One such was Charles Darwin, who visited the area in 1831 when he was a student working under Professor Adam Sedgwick. It was a trip that was to have such a profound influence on his future thoughts about the landscape and evolution. It was his return in 1842 to Comidwell, after his groundbreaking work on HMS Beagle, that he made his now famous statement about glaciation. And he said, "A house burned down by fire did not tell its story more plainly than this valley." Comidwell is one of the most important geological sites in Wales and visited by hundreds and hundreds of students. Thomas Pennant, the Welsh scientist, historian, and outstanding travel writer, he visited in 1786, and he thought it, quote, "a fit place to inspire murderous thoughts, environed with horrible precipices, shaded with a lake lodged at the bottom. The shepherd's fable that it's the haunt of demons, and that no bird dare fly over its damned water." He was accompanied on his tours by Moses Griffiths, who was his manservant, but a self-taught artist. And it was Moses Griffiths who supplied the illustrations for many of Thomas Pennant's publications. So, the popularity of Snowdon, now one of the most visited places in Britain, well, it can be traced back to the days when it was a focal place of scientific interest, and so many people went there trying to find out more about how the world evolved and what went on to create this incredible landscape of ours. Having said that, of course, I'm drawn to the fact that it is such an important place of recreation, and the way that it's a challenge for many people to get to the summit, be it by foot or by train. For many of us, the ascent of Snowdon is almost like a rite of passage. For some of us, it's a tick on our bucket list. But for members of the famous Everest expedition in the 1950s, it was their important training ground. The Penyd Gwryd Hotel was the expedition's base camp, and guests on a May morning in 1953 were awoken to a glass of champagne celebrating the ascent of Everest. The hotel has long been a focal point for climbers, and the entries in the visitors' books, well, it reads like a who's who of climbers. I love the entry from 1874, which reads, "Been up Snowdon, nice ascent, William Bolden, Burton-on-Trent." It can certainly be a challenge for those people who earn their living on that landscape. Many years ago, I had a chance meeting with a farmer, and it was that conversation that gave me a different perspective on what it must be like to earn one's living from that particular landscape. Of course, he appreciated and understood the beauty of the place and welcomed visitors, but he also knew so intimately about where the best places of grazing were, how the weather can change in a matter of moments, where to seek for a lost ewe, which ravine to look in. His understanding of the landscape was born out of generations who'd lived there before him. He was tuned in to the nuances of that landscape in every sense. And I think that's one of the important features from me, that it is a place of pleasure, but it is also very much a workplace. That it is held in such regard can perhaps be judged from the incredible response when the National Trust launched the Snowdonia appeal to buy a large chunk of landscape there. In 1998, over £4 million was raised, including £1 million donated by Sir Anthony Hopkins, who also spearheaded the appeal. And subsequent appeals have continued the work of buying and protecting the land. But conservation is more than just protecting the land, it's also about sustaining the communal sense of identity. And where better than the Iron Age hill fort of Dinas Emrys, where the red dragon overcame the white dragon. Here, once again, legend and landscape become so deeply imbued in our consciousness. Indeed, the victorious Eryri Goch is our national flag. I once had the amazing privilege of flying over the peak of Snowdon, and there below me was this majestic mountain and its surrounding ice-carved landscape. It's attracted visitors for many hundreds of years and continues to do even more so today. But we all take away our personal memories of that quite amazing place. It is such an important, significant landscape, but wherever we go in Wales, there are places of such great interest. But we have to, of course, be selective. So in future films, we hope to just explore some of the other places in Wales and the people associated with them.